Hey everyone, and welcome. I am Morgan Giss McDonald, founder CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I have with us today an incredible guest here to talk about the book that's called 2,442 Steps to Crazy. Now, if you have a history with trauma, or you know someone who does, and what that experience of trauma can really open you up to in life, this is going to be a conversation that you are going to want to be a part of. And I have with us today the author, who is also part of the U.S. Navy Submarine Corps, served on the USS Dallas, which, if you are familiar with Hunt for Red October with Sean Connery, that was the submarine. And he's currently 100% disabled vet and is really coming forward now and telling some of these stories that the world needs to hear. Mr. Doug Fleming, thank you for joining me today.
Well, Morgan, you're very welcome. And how cool is this to be on Paper Raven Books with the CEO and boss, Morgan? Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Well, I'm excited and just sort of like have a deep enthusiasm for getting this book and your message out to the world. And even from the very beginning, the first time I saw your book and you brought it to me, you said, Morgan, I got this book. It's 2,442 Steps to Crazy. You crack open the book and that first line just grips you. In fact, I'm going to read it and then I want to use that for us to dive in. The first line of the opening chapter is, "Don't breathe or crazy will hear you." So you're using crazy in a kind of different way and opening us up into your story of your childhood. Can you tell us a little bit about how we meet you in that opening chapter, Doug?
Yeah, well, imagine, if you will, being 3 or 4 years old, and you know that if you breathe, crazy is going to catch you, pull you out from underneath your safety spot, and lay into you. And you're certain that he's going to kill you this time. So if you breathe, you're dead. Hence the first words.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of just sheer will to survive for a young kid that you had to cultivate is incredible. And throughout this book, you do take us through kind of not only your childhood, but through kind of the journey of your life. Tell us a little bit about, growing up in an abusive home and these real life and death struggles that you were kind of exposed to.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, when you read the book, you'll see that the story takes you from very young age until a young teen, and the ending is just pretty unbelievable. But the struggle as a child, and many of us have had some issues as kids, and sometimes it leads to more than verbal abuse and into the hands of physical abuse. And in this story, you're going to get a firsthand accounting of what it's like. I guess I'll use the words of some folks who have read it and commented on it, saying this was torture. And again, I didn't know it was torture. I almost thought it was normal, and I kind of had a hard time understanding why other kids weren't going through the same things I went through. But then it led me into a feeling of alienation and being alone, and that just kept building into a fight to survive and a will to live.
Can you share with us the significance of the 2,442 steps?
So I don't want to give away too much in the book because you got to figure out where those steps take us. But the crutch behind it is that everything in life is a struggle. Even the good stuff we do, we've got to figure it out, and then we've got to put it all together and then take that first step. And whether it's heading towards something good or heading towards something that isn't so good, that first step is always the hardest. And when you read this book, you're going to see the struggles and then the resiliency and the perseverance behind getting over that first step, and then keep taking that step to whatever the target is, whatever the end game is. And in this particular case, it focuses on 2,442 steps. Now, I also got to say something else. This part kind of caught me off guard right when I published the book, an incredibly close friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, what's the 2,442 steps?" You got to read the book. And she says, "Well, I Googled it." I'm like, "Really? You Googled it?" And she says, "Yeah. Did you take this off of Google?" I said, "No, I didn't know 2,442 steps." She goes, "No, no, no, not the steps, the number. 2442, the number?" She goes, "Yeah, you didn't see it on Google?" Nope, never knew it was. So then she calls me back and says, "Hey, here's what it says on Google." And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're kidding me." She goes, "Nope. So if you want to see something cool, not only buy the book, read the book, but then Google what 2,442 steps says on Google."
Okay, well, I challenge people to Google it, and can you also share it with us here? We've got to give people something more than just a tease, Doug.
All right, so I'll give you the sense of it. It's a deeply spiritual number tied to angels. And as I tell you, hand to God, me and Jesus, we be one. All right. I did not know that number was a spiritual number until after the book was published.
Yeah,
Crazy, huh?
yeah, yeah. Well, and thank you for sharing just a little bit of a hint there, because to me, when you first shared that with me, and it cracks open the whole undercurrent of this book, right? Because this book is so much more than just, a child and young person's journey through trauma and abuse and survival and learning how to survive. The deeper undercurrent, Doug, is spiritual, right? And I think that that is the deeply embedded hope in not only this book, but your commitment to sharing this book to people. And would you mind sharing just a little bit of, not that we need to get into religious views or anything like that, but that like sense of this is like we live in a spiritual world. Yes, we see the physical and we feel the physical, and there is a sense of the spiritual in this world too. Would you mind sharing kind of your experience of that?
Sure, sure. Um, I like the way you kind of laid that out there because I am deeply spiritual and I have a deep, deep faith, but I'm not one that likes to, talk about it or discuss it. And more importantly, religion and politics, those two things are just taboo if you want to, have friends, right? But my opinion and my position on faith and religion is that it is a deeply personal matter between you and whatever it is you believe in. For me, my wife's Irish Catholic. We raised all our children Irish Catholic. I have a deep faith in the baby Jesus, but I also have a deep, deep faith in my Native American spiritualism, which is a whole different conversation. But at the end of the day, it all ties back to the good stuff in any religion, doing the right things, believing in something greater than you, knowing that you're here to help others, not focusing on yourself and trying to focus on the needs of the people around you, community, family, individuals outside of you. And that's a sense that I had from a very, very small age. I don't remember being born. I do have some memories that kind of shocked some people. Like my first memory was being thrown across the room, and I would say I was 3 years old and landing on the corner of a couch, and remember hearing a crack where I believe one of my ribs was cracked. But that was my first memory as a child, but it parallels my first memory of feeling something around me that wasn't, a person or a parent. It was a feeling of something that, for sake of the conversation, spiritual. It always felt like there was something near me, something right next to me or floating around me or holding me. And when times got really tough, that sense got very, very, very close.
That's the hope that's really embedded in this book. Even as you're reading this book, it's like, holy moly, this level of trauma and abuse is incredible in the sense that it is hard to believe, right? And right there in the midst is a sense of there's more. There's more than just this, which is extremely powerful. And folks, if you're here with us, you're listening and you're on the edge of your seat, you can dive into this book right now. In fact, thank you, Doug. Perfect. There's a link right next to this video. It's paperravenbooks.com/2442 steps to crazy, all one word. Or you can click that link. It'll take you over to Amazon. The ebook's on promotion right now. You can load it up in your Kindle, dive in. This is going to be one of those reads that keeps you turning those pages, and helps you really open up to what is possible with this world. And what do we not know? What do we not know?
Come on, fellow vets, get out there and buy this book. Let's go. We got people to help.
Exactly. And speaking of vets, I mean, Doug, you and I were talking before we hit record here. One of the reviews that has recently come in is from a person who works with vets. And I just want to read a portion of her review. It's public. She's posted it here on Amazon. And she said, as a VA therapist, I witness this phenomenon of burying early trauma on a daily basis. I'm proud of this veteran and author for finding his courage to stay alive, funnel his anger, use it to conquer massive challenges, and retrieve his true self. And for me, when I read that line, I just thought, that's it, retrieve your true self. And I think vets in particular struggle with this to an incredible level. And, if you know a vet, love a vet, or if you feel like you've perhaps experienced this kind of trauma as well, what's possible if we are able to see and acknowledge this level of trauma and somehow grow through it, somehow keep taking those steps that you talk about, Doug. And even, you just told me that you had lunch with someone recently, a fellow vet, who was planning to take his own life and read this book and decided not to. And that kind of incredible transformation. Again, I'm using the word incredible. It's like, this is hard to believe, and yet it is happening. That level of transformation that someone can go through just by reading a book makes you feel like you got to get this book into everybody's hands, right?
It does. And it's, I can't tell if it's more important for vets to read this so they can take a step towards telling their story, because that's the mission behind the book. It's to get people, not just veterans, but to get people who have been through trauma or abuse in any form. And let me qualify trauma. Trauma is in the eyes and the mind of the person who suffered trauma. When I was in boot camp was easy for me. It was a walk in the park. It wasn't even a tough day. But one of the guys in our company tried to kill himself. He slashed his wrists with a Bic razor. To him, boot camp was so traumatic that he decided to attempt suicide, right? That's a true story. So trauma, I've learned, is solely defined by the person who has been through it. And from my position, nobody, and I say this respectfully, has the right to quantify, or judge what another person considers trauma, because we just don't know their story or their life. And candidly, if you look at the reviews on Amazon, that seems to be the heart of the reviews, where they say, we never knew this about the author, because people just don't know. And the judgment part, people are kind of saying, yeah, I was judgmental, but I didn't know what was behind it. So, and yes, to the story of the vet, somebody I haven't seen in almost 4 decades reached out because of the book through my Facebook page. I'm big time technology now. I've got a Facebook page, okay? D. Paul Fleming. So, look me up. All right, friend me or follow me or both, however that works. But on a serious note, a guy I served with reached out, asked me to go to lunch, met with him. We're there for a couple of minutes, and he flat out said, I read your book. I'm sorry. I said, it's all good. Thank you. I was going to kill myself until I read your book. And he said it so matter of fact that I'm about to bite into a chicken wing, and I had to think. And I looked at him and I said, well, where are we? He goes, nah, I won't do that to you. And I said, well, thank you, because suicide's easy. I thought about it for decades and still do from time to time. It's a painful life to deal with mental illness. It's painful. It's more painful than any physical injury you'll ever have. It's brutal. So it causes people to not only think about suicide, but I tell people that are thinking about it, listen, I can't stop you from committing suicide, but I can make sure you know this. Killing yourself is easy, but you're killing the living every single day. My first suicide was about 24 when I found out. That's a long story, but at the end of the day, I don't think a day goes by that I don't think about Randy Smith, my first veteran suicide. It is that painful. So when I say to my fellow vets or anybody that's thinking about suicide, killing yourself is easy, but you're killing everything that's ever loved you day after day after day after day.
I mean, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that story with us. And and it is more than just the physical people who are here on this earth, right? Like, we are part of something so much bigger, and we have so much more support than we even realize, and I think that's, for me anyway, what your book kind of calls to, that theme of we're not alone. It may feel like it when we're 5 years old and hiding under the bed and trying not to breathe, or a teenager, or going through boot camp, or just there are a lot of situations in the outside world where we sort of feel like, why is this happening? It feels like this is too big for me. I can't handle it. You know, we're not alone. And I think that's one of the themes that really stands out for me in your book. Would you be willing to kind of speak to that? I mean, we sort of, we talked about spirituality, and you mentioned angels, but what is that hope that you feel like is kind of calling you to continue to share with people?
Well, I think there's a constant struggle between good and bad, right and wrong. And, it's not just in the outside world, it's within us and it surrounds us in our thoughts. And, they say about people talk about a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. I mean, I believe that, but not in so much of a sense of a guy with a pitchfork and a knife. I call it, you're crazy. So who is your crazy? Is it a person? Is it a disease? Is it a drug? Is it alcohol? What is your crazy? Is it the verbal abuse that you went through as a child or in a relationship? And I tell people all the time, the physical I don't want to say this the wrong way. The physical abuse was almost easy compared to the mental abuse. The mental abuse resonates to this day. And it's a constant struggle where I feel inferior. I don't ever feel like I fit in. I don't feel like I'm never comfortable around anybody. And I always feel like an outsider. Now, that's the result of mental abuse. The physical abuse, and let me tell you, I've had quite a few broken bones and, a lot of stitches and so on. They heal, they still hurt, but they heal. The mental abuse is just brutal. For me, as far back as I can remember, as I kind of mentioned in the first story about being 3, and there was always something there that kept saying to me, you're here to do something. You're here to do something. And it was like somebody was talking in my ear or inside my head. And I was like, is that me? Who the hell is trying to talk to me here? But I can remember that for as long as I can remember remembering. In my whole life, every time I've gotten into a tough situations, sometimes it'd be a little bit of a chuckle like, this is no big deal. Just suck it up and keep moving because there's something we need you to do. Then I would say, well, who the hell are these we need you people? And what's going on? And then I would see certain things. And then some of the trauma I went through, I would be let's say barely alive, and a couple of them I wasn't alive. And I got to see some things that were pretty amazing. Now, those things all by themselves will kind of make you open your eyes. But to me, I always had a sense of there's something that you need to go through so that you can help others. Now, for me, it didn't make sense. But now when I listen to people's stories, and this is the most important thing I can tell everybody, tell your story. A, it's a huge step forward. Okay. Hence the steps too, right? So telling your story and then believing your story. Again, you don't have to believe yourself. Just believe what the other people are telling you when you tell your story. Because there's something in your words that captures the attention of others. And the others may be a counselor, could be a religious figure, could be a friend, could be a fellow vet. Again, somebody came to me because we're fellow vets, where we can tell each other anything, okay? And trust what they say, trust that their name won't be used and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, to know that you can feel something around you is a starting point. To know that you, in your mind, are hearing, there's something we need you to do. There's a reason for you going through this. It will get better. You will be fine. It's a test. It's a test of your will. It's a test of your soul. And it's a test of your life now. Can you survive this? And I say you can. If somebody comes along and tells you that they believe in you, and if I can survive, you can survive.
That is absolutely the power of sharing our own stories, listening to other people's stories, reading stories like this. So again, folks, if you're hearing Doug talk and you're like, wow, this is my kind of conversation. Again, grab that book, 2,442 Steps to Crazy. The link is right next to this video, paperravenbooks.com/2442 steps to crazy. We'll get you right over to Amazon. That ebook's on promotion right now. Grab it, load it onto your Kindle. If you're feeling tugged in some way to share this with someone in your life, go ahead, tag them here, share this with them. This might be the book that they need right now. So I'd encourage you to go ahead and do that. Doug, any words for your readers who are diving into this book?
Yeah. If you think any part of this book isn't true, it is. This book is 100% true. In fact, I actually had to back off some of the stuff because it was too graphic. It was too much. And along with telling the story is probably the top 5 toughest things I've ever done. I never wanted to write this book. I never wanted to tell my story. In fact, I said, who the hell would want to listen to this crap? And I am shocked, amazed, and intensely grateful at all of the support from so many different directions that I just never saw it coming. But most of all, what I was told, I have a deep faith, and I was hearing, you're going to help people. I had no idea how. When I started watching people pass the book to others, somebody bought a bunch of copies at once and was handing them out to some people that they knew. And again, it kind of made me shake my head. So there's some very important stories and some very important lessons in here that resonate with you. I don't know what those stories are, but when you read them and you figure it out, reach out to me. Reach out to me on Facebook. Tell me what it is that resonated with you. Help us share it with others. And I guess lastly, well, I have a passion for my fellow vets because vets just don't like talking about, they don't like the attention on themselves. They don't like telling the story, but it is so brutally important to tell your story. Recently, I was at a medical appointment going through some horrible pain that I'm dealing with. And the doctor's telling me, he says, there was a doctor that worked in our building, and nobody knew he was a vet. He killed himself. Nobody saw it coming. There were no warning signs. There was no complaining. He just went home, left, killed himself. Wife, kids. Okay. This is a person who was a highly paid professional. Never saw it coming. Well, why? Probably because he never told the story. But that's why there's VA stats of 22 veterans a day committing suicide, and the real stats are probably closer to 50 or better. If you're not in the VA system, you don't know, and there's no way to count them. And this particular guy was never in the system, so he never got counted. The point I'm trying to make, you never know whose life you're going to save by handing them this book. And then I had one person say to me, I saw somebody rip the arm off their child as they were dragging them across the grocery store. Listen, I'm not here to tell you how to raise your kids. When they ask me the question of, well, what do I do? Do I say something? It's not my place. If you want to do something, have a book in your pocket and hand it to them. See if that helps them see what's going on, right? And I'm not trying to tell you to stick your nose in other people's business. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm telling you that if you read this book, you're going to find things in your life, not just veterans' lives, that you're going to be able to identify with, and it's going to help you move forward. Lastly, if you're a caretaker for a vet, if you're in a veteran, if your family member's a vet, and you're trying to figure out what they're going through, read this book. Read this book. Because like the VA therapist said in her review, it's eye-opening. Please, read the book. Let's help veterans, and let's help anybody who's had trauma or abuse in their life. Find out who your crazy is.
Yep. And find out the significance behind the 2,442 steps.
Heck of a journey.
It's a heck of a journey, and it helps all of us. I mean, you just said it so poignantly, Doug. It's like it helps us in reading your stories. Somehow it holds up a mirror and helps us to reflect on our own. And we really are going through our own healing journey and awakening journey in a lot of senses, as the reviewer said about, finding your true self, returning to your true self, reclaiming your true self. That happens in the pages of this book. So go grab a copy, click the link next to this video, paperravenbooks.com/2442 steps to crazy. Takes you over to Amazon. You can grab a book right now. Grab a book for a friend. Hand it to him the next time you see him. Tag him in this post. We've got some lives to save, some healing to do, and this book could be the book that opens the conversation for you, for yourself, and maybe with someone you really care about and you want to support them too. Thank you, Doug, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Grab that book, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.